The Geeking Poetic podcast is starting now.
Wow, we have not heard that funky intro in quite a while, have we?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since funky rock and roll.
2-3 months.
Yeah,
or more than that.
Yeah. So, we are back. My gosh. Geeking Poetic podcast, otherwise known in short as the Squadcast, is back. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Larry Roberts. Over to my side, across the way, down the hall. Actually, she's just at the other end of this sofa thing we're sitting on here. It is none other than my co-host and pal here. It is
Megan Guess.
And it had been too long since we've talked about all of the pop culture, geek culture stuff that's been going on lately. Needless to say, there's just too much that has been going on in the last couple of months since the last time we recorded. But we thought we'd focus, as we usually do, on what has been discussed the most and shared in our group on Facebook, which is the Geeking Squad group.
Yeah, thanks to everybody out there in the Geeking Squad. You guys contribute every single day. It's amazing. You guys are the best.
Yeah, they're on top of it more than we are, actually.
Yeah, really. You keep it going.
They really do. But yeah, we've had a lot of really good discussions in there. There have been some really funny content and things put in there. We're going to talk about some of that. And I think at first what we're going to do, well, we got to do like we normally do. It is, frankly, what has been shaken in the whole entertainment scene out there, and that is known as
What's Shaking, Bacon?
It never gets old.
I hope not. It's because it's been so long since you've heard that. I was hoping that still gave you a chuckle.
I was like, wait, what is this? I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, it's What's Shaking, Bacon. So yeah, in this section we talk about what has been shaken in the in the whole entertainment scene, whether it's music, movies, TV, comics, toys, all that stuff. First and foremost, unfortunately, we do have to talk about some recent passings. There have been a slew of them lately.
Yeah.
Just too many in the last.
It's been a little rough lately.
Yeah, in the last couple of weeks. Focusing a little bit on music first, we had two passings that affected me particularly because I was a big fan of both. I want to acknowledge the passing of vocalist as well as an actor, Mr. David Johansen. He was, to some people, you would know him as the lead vocalist and the guy who started the New York Dolls. It was a very, very influential band from New York, obviously. Back in the early 1970s, they sort of started the whole glam rock movement here in the United States. Of course, they had Bowie and T-Rex and all that over in England, but here it really took off in a big way with the New York Dolls. They influenced Kiss and Twisted Sister and any number of bands. They were influential on punk rock. They were influential on alternative artists. David Johansen also you might be more familiar with if you know the silly song. In the 1980s, he sort of reinvented himself as Buster Poindexter. Mm-hmm. And he sang that silly song, Feeling Hot, Hot, Hot.
Oh, really?
That's David Johansen. Yeah, he went from being the singer of the New York Dolls to being the hot, hot, hot guy. And then on top of all of that, he also acted in a bunch of movies. He was in, what was that, the remake of Car 54, Where Are You? He was the cab driver in Scrooged, the Bill Murray movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was him. You've seen him in a bunch of things if you're not familiar. If I showed it to you, you'd be like, oh, that guy. Yeah, that's David Johansen. I'm a huge New York Dolls fan. Huge fan. So this was a major bummer. Another band that I am just such a big fan of. They're just one of the most wonderful bands that ever existed, who sadly have had just a tragic past, and now it all ends with this. Guitarist Joey Molland from the band Badfinger. Some of you out there might know Badfinger. If you don't know them, recognize them by name. I guarantee you know their songs because they had a bunch of great hits. They had No Matter What, which I've sang many times before. They have Day After Day. They have Baby Blue, because that's the song they played at the very end of the season finale of Breaking Bad. And that was fantastic the way they used that too. Without You, they're just so many big songs. Come and Get It. If you want it, here it is. Come and get it. That's all Badfinger. They were discovered by the Beatles. They were put on the Beatles label, Apple. This band should have been huge, but I can't go on and on about it because you could literally do a whole show about it. Sadly, one of the members, the main guy, Pete, killed himself back in 1975. And then 6 years later, to the day that Pete died, one of the other members killed himself. And then some years later, Mike, the drummer, died tragically. And now Joey was the last one. And that is the irony of both of these, is that David and Joey were both respectively the last living members of each band. And so both bands now just cease to exist entirely. And it's a big bummer. It's a hard life, all that touring and working and, it takes
a toll on you.
It does take a toll on you. So anyway, hats off to them.
We've had some other passing, kind of moving on to actors from there.
Right.
Just recent, I think it's this past week even. Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yeah.
From Buffy the Vampire Slayer is where I knew her from.
I knew her from a few different things, yeah.
Yeah, she was in several things. Unexpectedly passed away at 39.
That's really young.
Real young, but I guess she'd recently had a surgery.
Yeah.
And it's speculative, obviously, but that something went wrong with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of details still coming out just yet about what happened with her, but from the sounds of it, yeah, she wasn't feeling well.
She wasn't doing too great. Yeah.
She wasn't doing great, and it's very sad. And then another one who I know wasn't doing too great, I'm assuming you're bringing up next.
Yeah, and a couple days after her, we hear Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy passed away.
Yeah, that
95 and 63 respectively.
That whole situation.
And that one's just bizarre.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure that out, so we can't comment too much on that.
There's a lot of, again, speculation of what people think happened, but it's still under heavy investigation because that one's just odd.
Yeah. And that's a shame, obviously to me. I mean, I've known Hackman from a bunch of different things. He was a fantastic
legend.
Yeah, fantastic actor. Of course, to me, being the geek I am, he'll always be Lex Luthor. So,
yeah.
It's crazy to me to think that like the main actors from Superman are gone.
They're gone now, yeah.
Christopher Reeve's gone. Margot Kidder is gone. Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman is gone. Obviously, people like Brando have been gone for years. But it's just, it's so weird because that's still such a big movie for me that looms so large in my life. I think about that movie like every other day for one reason or another. So to think that they're all gone now, getting old sucks, man.
It sure does.
It's a trip.
Yeah. Just to keep it piling on here, just as we sat down, we hear that Dolly Parton's husband, Carl Dean, passed away.
Yeah, that's sad.
82 years old.
Yeah, that's really sad because I know the little bit I know. Well, not a lot of people know anything really.
No, he was very, very private.
Yeah, Dolly and he were very private about their lives. There was a lot of people that were surprised that were like, Dolly Parton's married? Like they didn't even know.
Yeah.
And apparently, like I've heard stories that like, we all know Dolly is Dolly. Like she's all dolled up, no pun intended. She's got her whole look. But apparently, like when she's not doing public stuff, if she's like at home or even if she's out and about like in her hometown and stuff, like people don't even recognize it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like she just looks like a sweet little old lady, with her husband, and she's not all, dressed up and everything. And it's really interesting how much she kept that public.
2 separate lives, basically.
Yes, exactly. The public persona separate from the private one. So that's got to be a really big blow for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think they had any children. So that was her life. And that's really sad.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough on her. So, yeah, we'll see. hopefully you hear about these things and next thing you know, it's like 6 months later and there goes the other one. Yeah. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yes.
But
hold on there.
all right. So we've gotten all the unpleasantries out of the way, but it's not a fun way to start off a podcast necessarily, but I feel like it's
to give the tribute.
Yes, it's the respectable thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But let's get into some of the geeky news, some of the positive things. And one of the potentially positive things here is that there's been some new trailers released this year. Thankfully, it looks like Marvel, the MCU, is trying to get that ball rolling again. We just had the release of Captain America: Brave New World this month, or I should say last month now. And we just had new trailers come out recently for the Thunderbolts movie, as well as, and this is the one I'm really excited about, the Fantastic Four movie. Yes, we're finally getting the Fantastic Four in the MCU proper. Not as part of some 5-minute regrettable scene in a Doctor Strange movie where we get to see Mr. Fantastic and then he dies immediately because, my God, that's just bullshit. My God, that's just bullshit. I know you and Jess went and saw that movie at the theater when I was out of town.
Think about that movie. That was awful.
Yeah, that movie, there were good things about that movie, but there was a lot of bad stuff about that Doctor Strange movie. And one of the things that really annoyed me was that you finally give us characters like Mr. Fantastic and Black Bolt, like a proper Black Bolt. You give us all that and then
take it away.
You take it away in just this pretty ham-fisted kind of way, as well as just kind of ruining one of our favorite characters, which is Scarlet Witch in the process. But anyway, so aside from that, we are going to finally get a proper Fantastic Four movie. Of course, in this one, it's going to be Pedro Pascal playing Mr. Fantastic, playing Reed Richards. That's really cool, really exciting. The casting so far for this movie looks really good. The little bit I've seen in terms of the special effects and everything looks really good. I like the fact that they're going to have it set. It's not in Earth 616 because there's no way for them to explain that really, because then they would be like, well, where have they been all this time?
That's true.
It is an alternate universe one, although I think it goes without saying that universe is going to merge with ours somehow. There's various theories about that. I've heard some fan theories about how they're expecting that to go down. But in any case, I think that this is something that I really, really hope that this movie is good. It doesn't have to be mind-blowingly amazing. I just hope it's really good because, man, the Marvel Universe needs this really bad. And I think that Thunderbolts looks promising. Like, that looks like that could be a lot of fun in a lot of ways because, of course, it's got Bucky in it, but it's also got Red Guardian. It's got Black Widow's sister, who is now the new Black Widow, I guess. It's got all these smaller characters who are all basically villains at one time or another that are brought together to be this new team. It's not exactly playing the same way the Thunderbolts comic book went, because in that it is a bunch of villains that come together to form this superhero team. But in that comic, they're pretending to not be who they are. Like, people don't know that they were the villains. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, this is different. This is definitely the MCU universe version of it, but it still looks good. I'm a huge fan of Sebastian Stan and Winter Soldier. So having Bucky in there, that automatically means I'm going to watch it. But I'm a little bit more cautiously optimistic about that one. Not really going to get my hopes up just yet on that. And it seems like I was right to not get my hopes too far up. I'm not going to pass total judgment. I have not gone to see Captain America: Brave New World yet. I'm pretty sure you haven't either, right?
No, I have not.
No, I haven't gone to see it. I'll probably at this point wait till it comes on streaming or until I can get my hands on it some way or another. But from the things I know everything that happens into it, because anybody that knows me and knows the show knows that
You ruin everything. You have to read it all.
I am King Spoiler.
Yes.
Yeah, I like to know what I'm getting into. And I'm more, you know why too? You know what's another reason why I do that? I'm a reader. I'm a reader person. As much as I'm visual, I love movies, I love TV shows and all that, but I like to read.
Yeah, you do.
You know,
We'll watch something and you're reading it as we're watching it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you can't wait.
Well,
You need to understand.
That's part of it. That is a big part of it. But it's also because I take in the information better. I like things to be explained more thoroughly. As much as I like a movie adaptation, I love Stephen King movies and things like that. But I want to read the book. I want the exposition. I want the explanation of things. I feel like I can understand stories so much better when I do that. And a lot of times, if I hadn't have read stuff beforehand, I don't know that I would have liked and appreciated the movie as much as I did once I watched it.
This is true. I can get behind that.
Although, like I've talked about in the past, there have been times where I've read like a book or whatever, and then I see the movie and I'm like, oh, that's a total letdown compared to the book. So there is that risk. But in terms of it being like, oh, but you spoiled it for yourself, it's like, I don't know. A lot of these movies, I don't need it to be not spoiled for me. Like if I'm watching a Mission Impossible movie, yeah, I don't need to read about what's happening. Like Mission Impossible movie is going to be all about
the action
and and I can kind of take that as it comes. But when it's something that's a little bit deeper than that, or it's got a little bit more of an intricate story going on, and especially when it's comic book related, I think it's just because I grew up reading comic books that I want to read it, Let me read it first, and then I'll watch the live action of it. Mm-hmm. That's just the way I am. Maybe some people are the opposite. Maybe they're like, no, I want to see it first, and then I get interested in reading afterwards. That's okay, too. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah, from what I've read about Captain America Brave New World, it sounds okay.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds kind of okay.
No, I really haven't heard anything about it, so.
No, you haven't? Yeah,
No.
I hadn't heard too much about it, which I kind of didn't take as a really good sign to begin with. I mean, I'm going to let my own eyes and my own mind judge it for myself.
Judge for ourselves.
Exactly. But from the things that I have heard and the stuff that I've read, it sounds like it's okay, but it's another one of those ones that it doesn't sound like it's going to be like really mandatory.
Okay.
It's not like, oh, you can't have not seen that movie. Like, you're going to need to see that movie. I think that it sounds like it's just an okay standalone movie where I'm sure there are things that happen in it that are going to matter. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know if people out there have not seen it yet. And while I don't mind spoilers, you may not want the spoilers. So, I mean, one thing I can talk about, because everybody's seen it in the commercials and everything, is the Red Hulk's appearance. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that back when I saw the trailer for this and everything. So, I'm sure that's going to factor in later, the whole Red Hulk thing, and especially the way it went down. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer because I was kind of hoping that people were going to be like, oh my God, this is a must-see movie. You got to see it. So then I could be like, oh shit, okay, never mind. Never mind reading it first. I got to go see it. But from everything I've heard, people are like, yeah, it's okay. It's good. Like, people aren't really like trashing it or anything, which is good.
That's good. Yeah.
But
that's amazing.
But people are just like, yeah, it's all right. It's just okay. So knowing that, yeah, it's one that I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to rush out to the theater to see. Fantastic Four, I'm going to rush out to the theater to see. That's one where I probably won't wait. I'm just too big of a fan of Fantastic Four, like
You'll be there opening night.
I would love to. I miss that. We used to do that. Mm-hmm. You and I and Vito used to go to the theater like for opening night or at least opening weekend, and we would go see it, and that was exciting, I feel like I either need to do one or the other. It's like I either need to go right when it comes out and get the thrill of that and just kind of go in off the high and excitement of that, or I'm going to just totally like wait it out, You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to really wait it out and see where it goes. So yeah, maybe with Fantastic Four, maybe we'll like make plans.
Make an event out of it.
Yeah, maybe we'll go see that because I have very high hopes for that movie, and that makes me nervous, but you know, we'll see what happens.
You'll enjoy it either way, I'm sure.
Anything else going on in terms of like the superhero world with that?
Yeah, I saw something about Glenn Powell he's committed to write and star in the Captain Planet live action movie.
Captain Planet. Nothing screams like late 80s, early 90s like Captain Planet. And that's cool though, you know, like now who's Glenn Powell? Who's this dude?
So, yeah, I think he's like an up and coming actor.
Okay.
He's been in several things. My most recent love is Twisters.
Oh, he's the dude from Twisters.
Yeah, he's the main antagonist from Twisters.
Okay.
And he was fantastic in that. I love him in that. So I'm an instant fan.
Okay, now hang on. I'm not going to derail, but we're here to chat. So we're going to chat for a second here because you're saying that. Now, here's the thing. When you went and saw Twisters,
yes,
your feedback that I got from that was you were not like, you didn't, correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
You seemed like you didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it.
But you were kind of like, I don't know.
I was annoyed at the time, very much so, about them recreating scenes from the first movie and using that as a crutch, basically.
Okay.
But I have watched it again.
Right.
Since then, and I did enjoy it much more the second round. I was able to let that go a little bit. I knew it was coming. So I wasn't as annoyed by it.
Okay.
It didn't stand out to me as much this time. And I mean, his character, it cracks me up.
Yeah.
I love him. So.
Okay. So can you see him being Captain Planet? Like, does that seem like something he could do?
Yeah, I could see him being the lead role and an action figure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see this.
See, I think here's the thing. I get the impression that some people are kind of like rolling their eyes a little bit and like, oh God, Captain Planet. Like, do we need that? Like, but here's the thing. Like, I've been thinking about this a little bit lately. As much as I love Marvel and I have a pretty deep like, at the very least, of DC stuff, I do feel like we could stand to use some other superhero-y kind of stuff that steps out of that realm. Mm-hmm. You know, like it doesn't have to be tied into all of that. Like I don't need a Spider-Man cameo. I don't need a Bruce Wayne cameo.
Yeah, make it independent.
Make it start its own movie universe for Captain Planet. The main thing is just do it well.
Yeah, and it sounds like he would. I mean, this sounds like from 2018. This is like his love.
Okay.
This isn't just like, oh, I'm going to be Captain Planet. It's like, no, this is a passion for him. Okay. He's going to do right by it.
Nice.
He's not just going to do it just to make some money, quick money.
Right.
He has something in this.
Right. So it's kind of like Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool, like where he's like personally invested in it.
Yeah. So it sounds like, this is the reason why he hasn't taken on another DC or Marvel character, because this is the one he wants.
Nice.
To bring to life.
Good. Yeah, good for him then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know what? And on another note, talking about, I just brought up the Deadpool thing. I thought I heard something about Deadpool. They might be doing like a spinoff for Blade. They're going to bring Blade back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I heard they might bring back Blade and do it kind of in a some sort of like darker way. I thought I saw somebody saying that they might do a Blade movie in the way like Logan was. Oh, okay. And I could see that.
Absolutely.
I could see that, and that could be freaking amazing if they do that. So, I mean, that's the thing, like with the Deadpool movies. I know people love them. Although some people don't like them, but I know most people I know love the Deadpool movies. But especially after that third one, my takeaway from that is like, bring these characters back. You brought them back, and like we loved them. You know, I'm fine with you bringing back Elektra. I'm fine with you bringing back Blade, the Wesley Snipes Blade. You know, I'm fine with Channing Tatum as Gambit. I know some people bagged on it. I thought it was
fun.
I thought it was fucking great. I loved it. Like that felt it felt like old school superhero movie to me. And that's what I want, more of that. In any case, yeah, that's really cool to hear that Glenn is that committed to it. I hope with that kind of commitment, it means that it'll actually be something really good.
Yes. We'll have to check it out.
All right. Well, moving on a little bit from talking about movies, TV, that sort of thing, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, because I got to get it in there. We're going to talk about toys. Right now, or it just ended, actually, I believe. Toy Fair 2025 just happened. For those at home that don't know what Toy Fair is like the toy industry big convention sort of thing. It's like every year in January when I go to the NAMM convention, and that's where... No, it's not Vietnam. It's NAMM. It has to do with the National Association of, I believe, Music Merchants. And NAMM is, because I work in that end of the industry, that's where we announce like all the new merchandise and gear that's coming out for musicians. So it's like, Gibson and Marshall and Shure microphones and all those companies and Seymour Duncan. We announce all these new things that are coming out, and that's what they do at Toy Fair. It's where they're showing off all the new things they want the retailers to buy into and release through their channels or their stores or whatever, their online shops throughout the next year. And there was a few things. For the first thing I have to bring up, because it's got to be the first thing I bring up because it's the thing I'm the most excited about, is Hasbro announced another set of the Star Wars Retro Collection figures. Now, again, if you're familiar with our channel, I've been talking about these figures since they started coming out back in, what was that? 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. I think
somewhere like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2019 when they started coming out with these retro collection figures, which are basically either reproductions of the original ones from the 70s and 80s, or they are new figures done to look like those old figures. And recently, it was not that long ago, I guess. I suppose it was a little while ago, maybe about a year ago, I did do a feature about one of the box sets that came out of the Return of the Jedi figures. That box set, by the way, that box set, man, that thing skyrocketed.
Did it?
Oh, I wish I would have bought multiples. I bought one. That was it.
At least you got the one.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm super happy to have my one. But, oh, man, do I wish I would have bought more. Because I had wanted to get another one to open because I wanted to open a bunch of those figures.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I talked about it in the video. Well, that box set now goes on eBay for like $400 to $600.
Holy cripes.
Yeah, when I bought it, it was like less than $100. It was like $80 or something like that for the 6 figures that were in there. Yeah. So they're coming out with another one of those box sets, and this is for Star Wars A New Hope. Now, what's interesting is, in contrast to that last box set, when it came out with a bunch of reproduction figures of ones that are the figures I grew up with, but then they included one new figure in that set, and I believe it was Mon Mothma, if I recall correctly, that they had never made back in the day. Well, this box set is the opposite. It's a bunch of new, well, not new characters, but characters that have never been made as retro figures like that before, and one repro figure.
Oh, wow.
They did the opposite. So in this box set, we've got Dr. Evazan, which is the guy who says, "You wanted men. I have the death sentence on 12 systems. You'll be dead." The guy that antagonizes Luke in the cantina when Obi-Wan ends up cutting off Walrus Man's arm and all that stuff. Anyway, that's Dr. Evazan. And then there is a Rebel Fleet Trooper, which are the guys at the beginning of Star Wars with the kind of bowl-looking helmets and the vests, that are fighting off Vader and the troopers when they're trying to get Princess Leia and the plans. We never had a Rebel Fleet Trooper as a kid. Now we're going to get a retro one. Han in Stormtrooper disguise so he's in the Stormtrooper outfit with the removable helmet. Now, they did do a Luke in Stormtrooper disguise way back in 1985 as part of the very rare Power of the Force collection, but they never did Han. So now we're going to finally get a Han in Stormtrooper disguise. I want I want all of them. Let me have them all, please. We're getting Luke in his Yavin ceremony outfit. So that kind of orangey jacket that he wears at the end of the movie when he gets his medal.
Okay.
And everything. Yeah, they never made a figure of that. And then a sand trooper. So it's, the stormtrooper, but then he's got that orange shoulder pad thing and the longer rifle when they're riding around on the dewbacks. They go, look, sir, droids. And she's looking at me right now, folks, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But you nerds at home know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And we're getting a sand trooper. These are figures that have been made available as collectors' customs. There's people like Stan Solo, who, again, toy collectors might be familiar with that brand. Stan Solo made unofficial versions of these figures in retro style. And they've been very popular. So it doesn't surprise me that Hasbro is like, okay, we need to nip this in the bud because people are buying all these essentially, bootleg figures. Let's just make the official ones, which I'm all for. I think that's great. I love that these are going to be actual official figures. But the one figure that they are including in this set that is just a reproduction of one of the ones I grew up with is Walrus Man and his silly looking outfit and his orange, weird, like Michelin Man looking vest thing that he was wearing. Doesn't look anything like he did in the movie. I don't care because that's my Walrus Man. That's what I grew up with and I love it. So yeah, I'm all in on this set. It is going to be a Target exclusive, unfortunately.
Oh no.
So you're going to hear me screaming again about Target because I have a terrible time trying to get my hands on any of their exclusive stuff. It's always just such a clusterfuck. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to do my damnedest to get my hands on it. And once I do, I will most definitely do an unboxing and review on the Geeking Poetic channel on YouTube. Real quick, because I know I'm running long on this. There was a bunch of other cool stuff announced that is pertinent to what I talk about on the channel. One of them is that they've added more of the NECA Ben Cooper action figures. Everybody that watches the channel knows me and my NECA Ben Cooper Costume Kids collection. You're well acquainted with it. Yeah, they've got another series of them coming out. It is going to include Godzilla costume, Jaws costume. The Jaws costume is hilarious.
Oh, really?
Oh, you have to see it. And I remember this costume from when I was a kid because the mask that you wear, it looks like the picture of Jaws from the poster with his head coming up, trying to bite the person swimming overhead. So I don't know how to describe it really. You're just going to have to look it up, but it's like the upshot of the shark's head. So the shark's nose is technically above your forehead.
Okay.
Like, it's just so odd looking. I was like, that's the design they went for this. It's a must-have. It's a must-have on this figure. So there's those. One that the one I'm probably the most excited about next to Godzilla is there's a kid in a Planet of the Apes costume. Oh. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I remember the Planet of the Apes costumes. Those were great. Then they have The Fly from the movie The Fly, and they have Tarman, whatever Tarman is. I don't know. He looks pretty gruesome. He looks rather gross.
Is that like the one in Star Trek that ate Tasha Yar?
It could be. That would be a funny gag, huh? For like if you dressed up like Tasha Yar and I dressed up like Tarman and see if anybody gets it, like gets the gag there. It's like,
we have our Halloween costume for next year.
There you go. Yep.
That'd
there
be
you
funny.
go. So those look really cool and I will definitely be getting those and I will be doing an unboxing and review. They also came out, some you might be interested in. You'll have to check them out. There's just so many of it now. I know you can't even keep up with it, but they're coming out with new Beetlejuice toys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they look really nice. Some of them look really, really nice too. They're coming out with What We Do in the Shadows figures, which is an incredible, hilarious show. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. And then Super 7, which is a brand that tends to be very divisive with a lot of collectors. I am a huge Super 7 fan and supporter. I know some of you people hate it. I don't fucking care. I love most of what Super 7 does. Some of it I could take or leave, but a lot of it I think is great. And they're coming out with new additions to their G.I. Joe line, which is awesome. There's some awesome looking Thundercats figures coming out from them, as well as expanding their Sesame Street line. There's a bunch of great Sesame Street characters on there. And then lastly, the thing that I got the most excited about is they're coming out with 3 3/4 inch O-ring figures. Now, what that means is those are basically like G.I. Joes, the 3 3/4 inch that have the rubber O-ring inside with the movable joints and all that. They're coming out with ones like that of the classic Universal monsters. So there's going to be like a Wolfman and a Dracula and a Creature of the Black Lagoon. Those are absolute must-haves for me. All right, and then wrapping up our fairly long, I admit, I apologize, what's Shake and Bacon section. Meg, do you got one last thing you wanted to bring up?
I got one last thing. Season 2 of Goosebumps. Came out in January.
Okay.
It's pretty exciting. It's called The Vanishing with Justin Long in it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I enjoyed the first season, and I totally forgot about this till we started doing this. I was like, I got to get caught up.
Yeah.
It's been out since January. It's March.
Yeah,
what am I doing?
There you go. I know exactly what you're doing. You're probably on Pluto watching the same series you watch over and over and over again, aren't you?
It's Roku. And I'm watching Bones. So yes, I've seen like 6,000 times.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what your point is though. But no, yeah, I need to get on Disney and get this watched because I from what I've seen, it was good reviews.
Okay.
Like people say, yeah, it's pretty decent for like a teenager show and all that, which is what Goosebumps is.
Right.
So, and it has the Isa Briones in it from our Star Trek Picard. So, and we loved her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to get with the program. It's only 8 episodes. They're all out.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
So I got to get with it. Anybody's out there that's seen it, let me know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know in the comments. Any of the stuff we talked about here, if you're into it or you have any more insights in it, let us know in the comments or go to Facebook and go into the Geeking Squad group where it is free and easy to join us in there and let us know. But before we move on to the Squad Talk segment, we're going to talk about our sponsor here. We're going to focus on the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, the PFPN, which we are proudly a part of. And let's see what they have to say.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
All right, we are back and we are ready to do a little bit of Squad Talk. Now, this is where we pick some very specific things that have been posted or discussed and chatted about a little bit more in detail from the Geeking Squad group on the Facebook platform. The first thing, honestly, this is something that I posted, and it's something I just want to talk and rant a little bit about. And maybe, Meg, you didn't really join in the conversation too much, so I'd like to get your input a little bit about it. One of the things that I have noticed for a while now, and I got kind of triggered by this the other day, it has to do with people, especially I'm focusing specifically on various geek culture type of stuff when it comes to movies, music, TV, whatever. I really dislike this tendency towards revisionist history. Now, what I'm talking about most specifically is the tendency towards people to sort of rewrite history a little bit when they're talking about popular topics or events or things that happened in the past. In this case, again, like I said, with geek culture stuff, the thing that triggered me the other day was somebody was talking about how the popular opinion is that fans of video games, and most specifically of Pac-Man back in the early 1980s, were just totally mortified and put off by the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man when that came out in cartridge form for the VCS. You watch these various channels on YouTube where they do their little documentaries or their retrospectives about video gaming or home gaming or Atari or whatever, and you see a lot of people parroting the same story about Pac-Man came out and what a huge disappointment it was, and oh, we were all so put off because the graphics looked bad and it didn't play like the arcade version. And I saw a guy talking about this, and he brought something up that I completely agree with, which was to say that that's utter bullshit, folks. That's not the way it went down. That's not to say that there weren't probably people back then who saw that game and said, oh, well, this is kind of a bummer. This doesn't look the same or play as good as the arcade version. Yeah, they were pretty night and day in a lot of ways. But the truth of the matter is that, especially for a lot of us kids, we were just thrilled to have that game. It was still a very playable game. We had a lot of fun with it. I know, speaking for myself and my friends and my family, we had a blast playing that game. But unfortunately, there's all this like revisionist history where people are trying to tell something as though it is a historical fact based on how they view it now, not on how it actually was back then. It's similar to the whole thing like with the E.T. game, where people sit there and go, oh, well, E.T. was such a disaster. It was such a horrible game that it just ruined home gaming. And that's why, you know, the whole story of the landfill with the E.T. games in it, you know, that, oh, they just made all these millions of cartridges and nobody wanted it and everybody returned it because it was so terrible. And so it went into a landfill and it contributed to the end of Atari and all that. Well, there's some truth to that, in that the game was developed very quickly. It was not maybe as well thought out as it could have been in some ways, but that game still sold very well. And there was a lot of us, myself included, who really liked playing that game. Now, it was a very hard game, but it could be frustrating when you would fall into those pits, when E.T. would fall into those goddamn pits. That would drive me nuts because it was really challenging. But I don't think that made it a bad game, and I don't think it contributed in the way it did. For the sake of just making it clear, if people are like, well, if that's the way it is, Larry, then you tell us what happened. Well, I'm going to tell you. What happened was, yeah, a bunch of those games, Pac-Man and E.T. and all that, wound up in a landfill. But it wasn't because nobody bought it and everybody hated it. It was because Atari stupidly overproduced those games. They got way ahead of themselves. I mean, I think I read somewhere, tell me if this makes sense to you. I read somewhere where it said, these aren't the exact figures. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I thought they said something like they had pressed up like 15 million cartridges of this one game, but they had only to date sold like 8 million consoles. Yeah. So there was like way more cartridges than there were consoles, which that doesn't make sense because people weren't generally buying multiple
copies.
No, exactly. And it was things like that where I'm sure part of that was done in anticipation of, well,
selling more.
They were going to sell more of the consoles. Yeah, that it would balance out, but it didn't happen that way.
That's a lot more, though.
That is a lot more. And my figures, my data may be a little bit off. So by all means at home, if you know better, let me know in the comments. That's fine. But the point still stands that there was a lot of poor business decisions as well as just changing tides within the industry itself. And by 1983, like when E.T. was coming out or had just come out and everything, like, it was at a time when Atari was already pretty old. I mean, the VCS had been out by that point for like 6 or 7 years. And anybody knows in most consoles' lives and most toys' lives, they don't last that long. You know, like kids want the next thing. They were moving on to the next thing. And there were other things at that time that were taking a lot of focus away. Parents weren't necessarily worried about buying all the expensive, because cartridges were expensive back then. They were like $35 for a game.
Yeah, that's insane.
Back then,
that's
in the early 80s, yeah, they could be between like $25, $35, maybe even $40 a game. That's a lot to spend. And at the same time, kids were getting into other things. They were discovering, like Cabbage Patch Kids came out right around that time in the early 80s. And you had things like G.I. Joe and their big vehicles. You had Transformers. You had a lot of like more expensive, fancy toys that a lot of the kids were getting into. And things like Atari was just sort of getting a little tired and old. But it doesn't mean that we were looking at games like Pac-Man or even E.T. or any of them and going, oh, look how bad the graphics are. We didn't think that way. Those graphics were fucking astounding for home gaming at the time. And I just get so annoyed the way people do that. And I feel like there's a responsibility we should have, even on relatively, in the greater scheme of things, unimportant topics, whether it's video games or whatever, that we should be not twisting the truth to suit some kind of more exciting narrative to talk about, like, oh my God, and they bombed and it was so bad and everybody was in an uproar, when that's not the way it happened. And boy, they have just gone crazy with that revisionist history thing where now people go, oh no, that's fact. I've heard it everywhere. It's going to be taught in classes at some point. And I'm like, well, that's a shame because it's not true. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? Because I'm sure you've seen some level of that yourself, like with certain things. Do you feel like I'm overreacting, or do you feel like, no, even in like geek culture, that we have a responsibility to make sure we're telling an accurate story?
No, absolutely. Like our Gen X right now, it's huge. And we need to make for sure it's being told accurately, because history gets rewritten so easily.
Yeah.
That, we want to make sure it's accurate. This is our history. This is who we grew up, or how we grew up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember getting Pac-Man, and I adored it.
Right.
On Atari, and then, we got the Nintendo. I was like, oh my gosh, look at all this new stuff. And
right.
It was amazing. But I still loved all the Atari games that were so simple.
Right.
So, yeah, to say it's like, oh my God, it was awful. And they're like, no, it wasn't. We still enjoyed the heck out of all this stuff.
Exactly. And we weren't looking at it with the same kind of cynical, critical eye that people and gamers and collectors and everybody does now.
Yeah.
We
it
didn't,
just wasn't how it was then.
We didn't look at it that way. It's what it is too. It's a little bit of like, have you ever seen those memes that go around where they're like, what people think 80s bedrooms look like, and they'll show like this tricked out 80s bedroom with like
all this color,
like there's like
geometric
a really
shapes,
right there, and there's like a really cool like they had a Rubik's Cube chair, and they had like all these like really cool things on the walls and neon lights, blah blah blah, and it's like what an 80s bedroom actually looked like, and it looks like
brown,
a brown and beige, like pretty basic bedroom with some brown shelves, and that is true. That is it, because that's what most of us did grow up with.
Some burnt orange carpeting, shag carpeting,
right, exactly. And they you see that kind of stuff all the time where they're like, and TV and all that is kind of perpetuated that. If they do some sort of retro, styled TV show, a Stranger Things kind of thing or something like that. Although Stranger Things is pretty good about being pretty accurate with a lot of this stuff.
That's more accurate. But even things in the 80s or 90s even.
Right.
Where like you got Full House and Saved by the Bell, like those that's where that kind of comes from.
That's a really good point. That's
not real life. That's fantasy.
That was fantasy. Yeah, the bedrooms and the houses and the things you saw like that is not how it was back then. People think that it was like, oh yeah, back in the early 90s, you all hung out at places like the Peach Pit, in 90210, like it's all like neon and it's super like a milkshake shack kind of place, and they'd have like live music there and all this, and it was just so bright and happy and exciting and and it's like, that is not at all. I never went to a place like that.
No.
I never saw places like that. I only saw it on TV. Anyway, I'd love to get people's thoughts on that out there. I'd just love to know what you think about this. Do you think I'm being too harsh about it, or have you seen some pretty egregious examples of revisionist history? Let's stop with that. Let's start telling the real story, because I think the real stories may not be as big and bombastic and controversial, but I think they're important.
All right. Well, moving on. We like to, in this segment, also talk about a bunch of the memes, the choosing one memes you guys leave in there. And there was a whole slew of them you guys left.
Yeah, there was.
Let's go through several of these.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. Which one do you want to start with?
All right. Well, let's start with one. I think we've kind of talked about this before, but this one looked a little different.
Yeah, a little bit.
And Angie put this in there, and it's the trilogy meter. So it's all these trilogy movies.
Right.
And it's obviously listed like, 1, 2, and 3, and which ones of the 3.
How they rank.
Kind of how they ranked, exactly. Yeah. So like Star Wars 1 is pretty high up there. 2 is amazing. And 3 is the worst of them.
A little less, yeah. Yeah, we don't have to go through.
So, we're not going to go through all of them. There's a whole bunch of them. But the key here is Lord of the Rings takes up this one entire side, and they're all fantastic. And she wanted to know
if we agree.
Do we all agree with this chart here?
Yeah. I don't agree with this totally. I won't go through all of them. But I think the ones that I mostly disagree with is the main one I disagree with is Godfather, because they have it listed that in first place is Godfather 2. In second place, slightly a little bit behind it, is Godfather 1. And then way down, almost at a 0, in distant third place is Godfather 3. First of all, look, I'm a huge fan of this series. I've watched all 3 of them many, many times. I just watched them not that long ago, actually. To me, I'm sorry, the first Godfather film is far superior to the other 2. I would definitely put the first movie at number 1. Number 2 would come in second place, but I wouldn't even say it's a close second place. If the first Godfather is like 100%, I would say Godfather 2 for me is like 75%. Okay. And then Godfather 3 has its problems. It does. But people, I think, are too tough on that movie.
Okay.
I think they've just become far too tough. It's almost to the point where people it's become famous to hate it, and I watch it and I'm like, look, I still think this is a good movie in a lot of ways. So that one for me, I would probably put that movie at least at maybe 40%. You know what I mean? 40 to 50%. I can still enjoy aspects of that movie. But so that's the main one I disagree with. The other ones, Matrix, I agree with. Rambo, I think the second Rambo movie is better than they're giving it credit for here. I know, looking at the Spider-Man one, I'm assuming they got to be talking about the Tobey Maguire one. I guess that's pretty accurate. They've got the second movie far and ahead as being number 1. I think the first movie is really fucking good too. I would put those closer. Spider-Man 3 is garbage. Yes, I would put that last. The other one, and George and I were talking about it in the group, our friend George, and I think the second Jaws movie is really good. They have the first Jaws movie at 100%, and then they have the Jaws 2 at at 20% or something like that. I'm like, are you out of your mind? The second Jaws movie is great. It's great. It's a really, really good movie. They actually have Jaws 3 higher. Jaws 3 3D higher. Who made this? Vito? Because who would put Jaws 3 3D? I mean, just the title alone should give you the idea, It's like the shark's breaking through the glass at us. It's like, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Who would put that higher than Jaws 2? Somebody was trolling the shit out of us when they made this. No, I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. The one other thing. Oh, and another one is Terminator. They obviously have Terminator 2 at 100%. They have Terminator 3 way down at like 10% or 20%. And they have the first Terminator movie at around like 75%. I think the first Terminator movie, I won't say it's better than T2 necessarily, but it's right up there with it. Mm-hmm. It's right up there. Like if Terminator 2 was 100%, then I would say T1, the first one, it's got to be like 85, 90%.
Okay.
It's way up there. So those are the main ones that I disagree with. Everything else on here looks pretty accurate. And like Angie was talking about it, and I agree. Lord of the Rings, look, I love all the Lord of the Rings movies, but Return of the King is not on the same level with The Two Towers and Fellowship of the Ring. Those two movies are incredible. Return of the King is really, really good. I mean, it's still Return of the King. But that movie, I would probably put it like 70%.
Okay.
For one thing, it ends 500 times. It has so many endings. You're like, oh, the movie's over. No, it's not. Okay, we got another ending. Oh, okay, now it's over. Nope. We got more to tell. It's like, oh my God, this never ends. And then if you're somebody who ends up having to see the unedited full version of it, like the 5-hour version of it or whatever it is, like Jess watches all the time, it's like, oh my God, this movie never ends.
It's like the Barney episodes.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's where I'm at. How do you feel about this?
I mean, obvious one on here. My complaint is the Indiana Jones. How are you going to make 2 and 3 the same level of like 75%? Are you insane?
You know what? You're right.
That is insane.
I have to agree with you on that.
2 needs to be like 10%. And 1 and 3 need to be 100%.
2. Oh, come on. Are you trying to say Temple of Doom is only a 10% movie?
I can't take her screaming. Oh, she ruins it.
I mean, she does ruin a lot of it.
Maybe put it like at 40%.
I was going to say, for me, I would
50%.
I would put Temple at maybe like 50%. Yeah, because there's still some great action in it. There's some great lines in there. Mm-hmm. It's not one that it's the one out of the 3 I want to watch the least.
Absolutely, yep.
By far, but yeah, I would.
Even you throw in the Crystal Skull, I would still put number 2 below. You know what? I'm not going to argue with you on that. I think Crystal Skull, for all its problems, because it's got some, folks, for all its problems, I probably would enjoy watching Crystal Skull more than I would enjoy watching Temple of Doom. Yep.
Yeah, I could actually probably take both those movies and just chop up like the good parts and
just watch the good parts.
Watch the good parts and be done with it.
But 1 and 3, excellent. They both need to be 100%.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I can.
That's my biggest complaint on this whole thing.
Yeah, because they didn't even put 3 at 100%. They put it at like 80.
Yeah, they made it match 2. That's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, that is weird. That is real weird. Yeah, I agree with you. Do you think they're going a little harsh on Jurassic Park there? Because they gave the first one, they gave it 100%. And then they gave Jurassic 2, like, what is that, like a 30%? And then the third one's like 10%. I feel like that's a little harsh on those movies.
Yeah, maybe Die Hard 3, too, would be maybe a little lower.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I could see that. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty interesting there. So, yeah, if any of you want to take a look at that, it's over on the squad group, and you can let us know your thoughts about that.
Well, I have another one that I don't know squat about.
Okay.
That you need to weigh in on. It was a cartoon clash.
Okay.
And you have to choose either Thundar the Barbarian or Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing, real quick. Both of those are cool. I like both of them. I know most people are going to choose Dungeons and Dragons because it's Dungeons and Dragons. I get it. You know, it's so popular. And that was a cool cartoon. I have kind of retrospectively gone back and watched some of those in recent years and actually really liked a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoons. But Thundar the Barbarian was my shit. And it was all about Ookla the Mock.
Oh, my.
Ookla the fucking Mock. Yeah, Ookla the Mock. He was cool, man. He was like the Chewbacca to Han Solo.
Is that what this little beast thing is on this picture?
Yeah, that's Ookla the Mock. And it's also funny to me because there's a guy that used to walk around the neighborhood, one of the infamous corrupters in the neighborhood, that Nick my buddy Nick referred to as Ookla the Mock anytime we saw him. He'd be like, oh, look at fucking Ookla the Mock walking down the street over there. And it would just make me laugh every time because the guy did look like Ookla the Mock. It was amazing. But yeah, for me, Thundar the Barbarian, great show. Kind of predated He-Man. It was very He-Man-ish and some kind of like a cross between He-Man and Conan. Yeah. Sort of in between there. And it's a great show. So I recommend that one.
Okay. Well, I got something else for you here.
Okay.
All right. You got one quarter.
Oh, okay.
1980.
Yeah.
85. You can pick one game to play.
Okay.
You're going to have to choose between Donkey Kong,
Yep.
Galaxian, Frogger, Pac-Man, Centipede, Asteroids, Defender, Space Invaders, Tempest, and Star Wars.
Ooh.
You only do one. You only got one quarter.
So I could just go on and on about this because there's like so many. It's like, how do you choose? Do I choose what's the best game? Do I choose the game that's going to give me the longest gameplay? Mm-hmm. If you only have one quarter, because that would be my inclination. In which case, if I was going to do that, I would probably choose. What did you have? Was Space Invaders on there?
It is.
Yeah, Space Invaders is one that I could last pretty long on. I actually, back in the day, could last pretty long on Pac-Man, too. I'm really rusty with it now. I'm terrible at Pac-Man nowadays, but I got pretty good at it. The one that I would be most drawn towards and the one that I played a lot, or the two, actually, that I played a lot at the arcade was Star Wars.
Okay.
I loved the Star Wars game, and I was quite good at that one too. So that's a good contender. But the one that my heart just was set on, and I have such fond memories of, I would play it at Kentucky Dam Marina down in Kentucky when I was a kid. Anytime we go there, any chance I got, I would sit down and play the tabletop version of it because they had the little sit-down cocktail table version of it. Was Centipede, man.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, do I love Centipede. And now I have the arcade 1-up version of Centipede at home that I can play.
Do you?
So yes, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, but one of these days I'll get it set up in the basement when we get that all done. But if I have to, if I'm really pressed, I'm going to go with Centipede. That's going to be my choice.
Nice.
What about you?
So I never played any of these in an arcade game.
Okay.
I did it more Atari.
Yeah,
when I had them.
Right.
I love Pac-Man. Was never good at it.
Yeah.
I did enjoy Space Invaders as well.
Right.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Galaxian though, now I got to go with Galaxian.
Wow.
I really enjoy that one.
Yeah, Galaxian's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm just surprised. I thought you're such a Mario girl. I thought for sure you were going to go with Donkey Kong.
Yeah, but I like just Mario.
Okay.
So even like the Dr. Mario and stuff like that.
Like the later Mario
I like
stuff.
Yeah.
Super Mario and all that.
Super Mario Brothers and all that. Yep, that's the ones I like.
Fucking
so
Mario Kart.
Galaxian of this list here. Yeah. Mario Kart's amazing. Yeah. Galaxian. I get a kick out of that game. It's I sweat, I scream, I cry.
Yeah, no, it's a tense game. It's a great game. All right, that's a cool choice. All right, yeah, it surprised me. You got me with that one. I wouldn't have. I thought for sure you were going to go with the Donkey Kong. Okay. All right, any others?
Yeah, we have this. You have to choose a non-human 1980s sidekick. You can only choose one.
Okay.
All right, you got Gizmo.
Yeah, from Gremlins. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You got Falkor.
Oh, from Neverending Story.
Yeah. Howard the Duck.
Oh God.
Yeah. E.T.
Yep.
Ludo from Labyrinth.
Oh well, gee.
And Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
So why don't you just go first? Because I wonder who you're going to choose.
Let me see here. So Gizmo. And Harry might be, I will see. But I think those two would destroy my house in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well,
because they have in the movies. Howard the Duck, no.
No.
E.T., I mean, he's pretty cool, but he's going to eat all my Reese's, and I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
Falkor, he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
flying little doggy. Yep, I like him. But of course, I got to go with sweet and friendly Ludo.
I love how you actually at least made an attempt to pretend like it wasn't Ludo.
Going to be Ludo the entire time.
Ludo 1000%.
Ludo friend.
Yeah, you know, you are like the biggest Labyrinth fiend that I've ever met. So noble effort that you try to pretend like it wouldn't have been.
He's my noble steed.
Yeah, that it wouldn't be Ludo.
Yep.
For me, I'm gonna say I love Gizmo, but he's too high maintenance. I'd be so like, you can't feed him after midnight. You can't get him wet and all this kind of stuff. My cat Bojangles is high maintenance enough with those kind of things.
He is his own Gizmo.
he is a Gizmo. It's like, why is he wet? Oh no! How did you get wet? What is and what is he doing? What's he getting into? Yeah,
I did that the other day with Tater. I was like, why are you wet? You've been laying with me for hours.
It's a tuxedo cat thing.
Yep.
But so he's too high maintenance. Harry and the Hendersons, he's fine, but he's just too big and cumbersome. Howard the Duck, not a fan, just never really was. Nope. So for me, and Ludo is really cool, but the thing about Ludo is, again, he's a big boy.
He is.
And he would just be, I guess it depends on what my situation would be. If I wanted somebody to sort of like protect me, like to be strength kind of thing, I would go for Ludo. If I was just sort of like traveling the world, sort of, you know what I mean? Like just going on many, many adventures here, there, and everywhere, I got to go with Falkor. That's gonna be my choice.
Nice.
Just riding around on him. He's a good guy, and I'm gonna go with Falkor. So you got Ludo, nice. I got Falkor.
All right, good. I like it.
Okay.
All right. So we have one more here.
Okay.
All right. So we have 9 TV shows here.
Oh, okay. I forgot. This is the one I shared. I forgot all about it.
You just shared this.
Yep. Okay.
And you get to choose to be a part of one of these casts.
Okay.
Just the one. All right. So you have Cheers.
Right.
Who's the Boss?
Right.
Growing Pains.
Right.
Elf. Mm-hmm. Moonlighting. The Golden Girls. Miami Vice, You Again, and Remington Steele.
Well, clearly I would fit on Golden Girls.
Clearly.
No.
You're one of the guys they date. We're the same age now.
I was just going to say, just because I'm the same freaking age now as Rue McClanahan was on the show, we don't need to rub that in, okay?
Okay.
No, yeah, okay. So right now, I could tell you right now, I'm not going to do Golden Girls. You Again, I only vaguely remember that show.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
I do remember it, but not well. Remington Steele's pretty freaking cool. That would be pretty fun. I don't know. For me, it's really probably a toss-up between Who's the Boss and Moonlighting.
Okay. I figured Moonlighting had to be in there.
I love Moonlighting, but in terms of being part of the cast of it, I don't know if I could deal with David and Maddie all the time.
It'd be a lot, right?
They would be a lot to deal with. Watching them on TV is one thing, but having to be in it with the two of them, I would just be like, oh my God, you two. Like, come on. Enough already. Just get it on and get it over with and stop misunderstanding each other. No, I gotta be honest with you. I'm going with Who's the Fucking Boss.
Wow.
Man. I want to be on Who's the Boss.
Wow. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I would totally hang out with Tony Danza. Like, that would be cool if I was like Tony Danza's like buddy that plays at the bar down the street or something like that he goes to, sometimes when he's not making dinner and cleaning the house and dealing with.
You just want to hang out with Samantha.
Well, I mean, if you're talking, okay, well, here's the other thing.
Yeah, what age are you?
I was just going to say, so I am going to go with Who's the Boss because that works for me both ages.
Gotcha.
If I was the age I am now, then I would totally hang out with Tony. I would probably hit on Judith Light when Tony wasn't around and flirt with her a little bit. And I would definitely not turn down getting hit on by Katherine Hellman because she was an awesome, sexy, sassy old lady.
You two are getting so much shenanigans.
Oh, me and her?
Oh, yeah.
Me and
You and
Mona?
Ro-
Oh, me and Mona? Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I would be down with that. That would be so cool.
I'm seeing
so,
this.
But then as a kid, like back when that show was out when I was like a tween, right?
Yep.
A tween and a young teen. And then absolutely I would have chosen this show. Absolutely. I would have so wanted to be on there with Samantha and her friends, because when I was that age, me and my buddies, Steve, Steve, me and Steve and Dave and George, all my old buddies, when I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, we were infatuated with those girls. Mm-hmm. Samantha and all her ditzy ass friends that she would invite over and everything. We each had like our favorite. Steve was all about Alyssa Milano. That was always his girl, but I liked a couple of the other ones, so like, yes, I would have totally. And some of the things that happened, some of the goofy stuff that happened on there, I would have been a part of that. I would have laughed and had a great time. So that is my choice. My other choice when I was a kid would have been Growing Pains.
That's where I thought you were going to be going.
Because I would have totally hung out with them too. Yeah, they would have. Ben just cracks me the fuck up, man. He is definitely the best little brother on any of the shows. Ben was awesome. That's my favorite little brother sitcom character is Ben from Growing Pains. So that's my choice.
All right. Yeah, I had a hard time because my initial inclination was to go with Cheers.
Right. I saw a lot of people in the group voted for Cheers.
Chose that. Yeah. And yeah, but I hang out at a lot of bars already coming to see you play. I was like, I already do that.
Right.
I think I'm good. A lot of characters I meet.
Yeah.
Hanging out and listening to you play. But Miami Vice, that's a little dark.
Miami Vice is that'd be a little risky to be on that.
Yeah, that was pretty dark. And Growing Pains is just boring to me. Who's the Boss was another good choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that I thought about.
Okay.
But I ultimately chose Remington Steele.
That makes sense to me.
It does.
For you?
Yep.
I could see that. A
woman taking charge, solving mysteries. Pierce Brosnan.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Remington Steele, 100%.
That's so you.
Yep.
That is so you, because that is the kind of show I could see you watching and getting into, because, yeah, it's got the whole adventure,
excitement, and yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Done it.
007 style kind of thing, but a little more like silly, goofy than that.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, anybody know where I can watch that? Where's it streaming at?
Remington Steele? It's got to be.
It's got to be somewhere.
You would think it's got to be. Yeah, we'll have to look into that and find out.
Yes, please.
All right. Yeah, that was cool.
All right.
What do you suggest?
All right, so for our final segment of the show, we know this is a pretty long episode for us, but then again,
it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, exactly. So we, in the What Do You Suggest segment, basically suggest to you something that we have been into. In the past, we've each done our individual ones, and then sometimes we will recommend a channel or another content creator in addition to that you should check out. We're actually, this time, we're kind of combining it all into one, because this is a channel that I discovered, and then I told her about it, and you said you've started watching it now.
Yes.
And I've turned Jess onto it. I've referred some other people to it, and we're all really enjoying it. And I just want to give a shout out to it, because not only is it a great channel on YouTube, but he's a Chicago guy.
He's local.
Yeah, he's a young Chicago guy. He's a young guy in his 30s. His name is Adam Witt, W-I-T-T. And Adam is a guy that he basically has a food channel on YouTube. But what's cool about it is he's not a trained chef. He's not somebody that's like, well, I went to culinary school and I've got all these really fancy hoity-toity kind of recipes and this highfalutin taste. And he's not. He's just a Chicago dude like me. And he's like, look, I like garlic. I like beef. I like pizza. I like burritos. I like
spice.
Yeah, that's the one thing he has that I don't. And I can't eat spicy stuff, unfortunately. But he is somebody who has been very honest about his journey from the start to this. He started out being somebody who just worked in little local restaurants and dives and stuff. Eventually, he started working, I think out on the West Coast in food trucks. So he got that experience. Then he came back here, started working as a personal chef for a family. So he's had a lot of different experience in different areas, but all sort of like figuring it out as he goes. You know what I mean? Like he's just a total journeyman. He's not educated. He's not certified on anything, but he seems to know his stuff, and he's funny. He's personable. He's down to earth. And I just love that he focuses so much, especially on Chicago eateries. Like he goes around to all these different places, and not just like the fancy, well-known ones.
Mostly the dives.
He goes to a lot of neighborhood places.
Shacks.
Like, yeah, exactly. And he'll focus on the small family-owned neighborhood places and really deep dive into what they have to offer and what makes them special. He also teams up with other local people that work in different areas, whether they work in Mexican food, or they work in Italian food, or they work in bakeries, all this stuff. That he just did an episode, of course, because of the timing. He just put out an episode a couple of days ago talking about paczkis.
Oh, okay.
And everything, because he wasn't really all that well versed in paczkis. Like he's like, these things are always so hard to get every time of year because of the Fat Tuesday thing. So he kind of did a really cool episode about it. I just watched it.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yes, you should definitely check it out. And anyway, yeah, it's just, if you like things like that sort of thing, if you're into food shows, but you don't necessarily want the Food Network type of thing, where again it's going to feel a little bit touristy or a little bit too upper crust taste for some of your stuff. You know, he definitely touches upon that, and especially if you're a Midwest kind of person, I think you can relate to him and this show. He's got a lot of subscribers, but he's not like some big high budget thing. You can tell that this is still shooting from the hip a lot of times, you know, where he fucks up, you know, he screws up,
and he runs with it. It's awesome.
And he just runs with it, and he makes it funny, and he makes it relatable. He seems like the kind of guy that you would hang out with, you know, at the bar at Reggie's and have a drink with, and, you know, shoot shit about like Polish sausages with or something, you know? So yeah, his name is Adam Witt. He's on YouTube. You can look him up there. And he's got a website that features all of that and goes more into his backstory if you're interested in that. Of course, he's got a Patreon. So if you like him, definitely support him if you can. All the money he makes basically from Patreon just goes into him buying the food and stuff and the supplies he needs to make more content. It's, you know, he's not getting rich off of this. And, you know, that's pretty cool. So yeah, it would be www.adamwitt.co. No M, just adamwitt.co. You can find his website. And, yeah, so that's it. And, that's it for us, man. It's been a long time since we've been back in this saddle, but, we're happy to be back, and I would like to sit there and say we'll be back soon. I have no idea when we'll do the next podcast.
We'll be back eventually.
Yeah, we've got more content. We're going to be doing more top 5 stuff. We've got Disney deep dives. I've got way more of my music and toy content coming out soon. So you can watch or listen to all of that. Please subscribe, please like, please share, and please come back. We want to see y'all again soon. See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.